The Extraordinary Rendition of Janos Farkas. Chapter 55. Is this yours? He asked. Ein looked at the diamond pendant in his hand. She didn't answer. One of the guards had it. It's very expensive for a guard to have, don't you think? At least 100,000 euros, maybe more. The silence Ein showed did not reflect what was happening inside her. What was expected of her? She had to get Janos out, of that she was certain, but how? They had opened the door for her with the bribe, and now they had slammed it shut in her face. Now the bribe lay in Colonel Abbas's hand, and the escape lay doomed. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe she was not meant to untwist the twist. Maybe she was meant to be in Beirut, bearing false witness for the false Janos. The guard said the diamond was meant to be a bribe, was it? Ein remained outwardly silent. A bribe to help him escape. No answer. Do you think anyone escapes from here unless I let them? Ein shook her head. She could feel a confession in his last words. Unless I let them. She waited for more. Surely more would come. I told you yesterday we had no interest in your husband, that we had no use for him here. The Americans don't want him anymore either. What do you do with someone no one wants? I want him. Abbas smiled at her. Holding the diamond up to the light, he said, "It sparkles. Like you, it sparkles. Your husband must be a very rich man to afford this." It was a wedding gift. Who from? A friend. Does this rich friend have a name? Ein sat silently, not answering. She did not want to bring Haud into the equation. She didn't know what to Abbas was the known and the unknown. A secret admirer, perhaps. Silence. We all have our secrets, Miss Farkas. The Americans thought your husband had secrets. That's why they brought him in here. Do you know your husband's secrets? Do you know what they were after? Again there was silence. You seem to be good at keeping secrets. Are you? Again Anne kept silent. If we were to share a secret between us, could you keep it and not tell anyone? Again Ein didn't answer. Would you or wouldn't you? I need to know. I nodded. You would keep it just between us? I nodded again. Good, Miss Farkas. I think I can trust you. Would you like to see your husband? Yes. I will let you as long as you promise me one thing. What? That you don't let him in on our little secrets, Abbas replied, holding the diamond pendant up and slipping it into his shirt pocket. Haud walked among them as he would lambs before the slaughter. He had no compassion for them, no compunction about destroying their worlds. Some would eventually come over to his side and survive, most not. He watched them scurrying about on the break. Cell phones, toilet calls, and cigarettes on the open-air deck. The conference was going as usual, as expected. As issues arose, sides were chosen, the proverbial line drawn in the Arabian sand. Occasionally a country would make a grand gesture of compromise and step across the line. Invariably, a nation on that side would cross the other way, and so it went. The League was not a unity unto itself, only a perceived unity to the rest of the world. Haud would change all that. His new League of Arab nations, of Muslim nations, would be a true unity that would deal with and dictate to the rest of the world. If plans had not been twisted, the plot unpredictably thickened, all would have happened within the next 36 to 48 hours, a series of small personal explosions, the demise of heads of state as they made their predictable journeys home. As it was, that step would take maybe 6 to 8 months or a year now. That his father, King Haakon, was the key was never so obvious as it was at a League meeting. He was the great compromiser, the voice of reason and wisdom that kept the League from disintegrating through petty squabbles. His brother, Prince Fadil, sat at his father's right-hand side. He had not only learned his father's art of diplomacy, but had taken it to a new form that commanded the respect of kings and presidents alike. King Haakon did the talking, but it was Fadil they looked to for approval. That would change. Howard himself was relegated to the background, second tier. That would change. He looked across the room at his father and brother huddled together, talking. That would change. Tonight was the night of change. She had pushed away from him in the night, shunning the intimacy that he himself had tried so hard to avoid the night before. There was no reason, at least none that she gave, and he had lain awake wondering what made the change. "What surprise were you and Prince Howard planning?" she had asked. He had no answer, and she had no answer as to what had happened to the diamond pendant, only to say, "It is safe." In the Canisian Nar section, he found a small shop selling cameras and optical equipment. He bought a compact pair of Carl Zeiss binoculars. At the U-V restaurant on the top floor of the Phoenician Hotel, he requested a window seat and ordered lobster salad and a bottle of Jean-Marc Brocard Chablis. Quays 1 and 2 in the port of Beirut had recently been refitted for cruise ships, and the Saudi royal yacht sat alone in the basement. Through the Zeiss binoculars, he could clearly make out members of different delegations on the aft deck. A sniper would have had a field day from where Spencer was sitting. He watched Howard walk among them. He didn't need to sharpen focus to see the smile on Howard's face. Spencer scanned the yacht for information. There wasn't much. A second aft deck, 3 stories up, likely off a smaller restaurant. The other deck was 2 stories above that. It was small and partially surrounded by sliding glass windows. Through the opening, Spencer could see the luxuriousness of the teak and leather furnishings. There were 3 gangways, one aft, one fore, and one amidships. The amidships one was a portable escalator lowered from the ship. That would be for the private use of the king. The rest lay hidden behind the yacht's large reflective windows. Not much to go on, but something. The elevators would be at the center by the king's automatic gangway. The large convention room, restaurant, and entertainment facilities would be on the main deck. The second deck would contain the first tier of luxury rooms and suites. The stories above that would house more entertainment facilities and another restaurant. The top floor would be for the king himself, and the floor just below it for the princess, and most important and discreet of guests. He scanned the binoculars over the rest of the area, past the marina below the hotel, and west to the first of Beirut's beaches. He was not interested in any of this. He just didn't want to seem to be too focused on Quay 1. The Lobster was North Atlantic and must have been flown in that morning. It was wonderful. So was the Chablis. Picking up the binoculars, he scanned the streets below. Some people seemed to move with purpose and some with none at all. Was Ayn among them? She had left early that morning without word to where she was going. He looked at his watch. That was 3 hours ago. She would likely be back at home by now. There was nothing for her to do in Beirut. Without hope, he scanned at the people below, looking for her face. What he saw froze his action. Sitting on a bench on the street down and to his right was a man staring up in his direction. Spencer centered the binoculars on his face. The eyes were focused directly up at him, as if he too had binoculars. The eyes were small and the pupils black. The priest. There was no buzz inside her when Janos entered the room. The feelings inside her were dead, killed by a secret. Janos's eyes were alive, moving with the intensity of hope as he came to her. "It's in place," he said to the closeness of her ear. "The diamond worked. The guard, tonight." She pulled him even tighter, not daring that he would look at her and read her eyes. "When?" she asked. "Tonight," he repeated, "at dusk, the small door on the north side of the prison." When they sat at the table, the actor in him took over. He became a tragic figure, a Hamlet without hope. "What can I do?" he moaned. "Do the newspapers know what has happened to me? Why has the Bosnian embassy not come forward? My country has done nothing. I don't know where to turn. Do you think your country, your embassy, could do something? Perhaps you'll visit me tomorrow." These were words that were neither shouted nor whispered, but spoken carefully with just the right cadence and volume to play skillfully to the audience listening to the hidden microphones. Ein wanted to shake him, to yell at him, "This is a play act. Do you not see it? It's all a joke, a setup. You are not going anywhere." Aloud, she said, "I'll see what I can do. I'll go to my embassy. There is the man there who, maybe someone there can help. She didn't know what followed She didn't know at all. She wanted to say, "I love you," but she couldn't, because what was the use of that part of it? That part of it had come to an end. Her eyes were full of dismay, and Janos read them as though she understood the act he was playing and was performing back to him. They sat in silence. Only the dance in his eyes betrayed his act, his portrait of doom. The priest looked up. Just how clever was this man Janos anyway? Why did he secretly need to spy on the royal yacht? If he and Howard were really in tight, what was the purpose? Was he up to something Howard didn't know about? Did he have his own agenda, a double cross? Not that it mattered. Howard was double-crossing him. Tonight, somewhere after midnight, while Janos and his wife, Turk and that woman Gisela, were on board, King Haakon and Prince Fadil would be assassinated. Of that he was sure. The priest was going to do it himself. Janos and his group would be accused, and in the ensuing gunfight with the bodyguards they would all be eliminated. Except Gisela. He wanted her for himself. Howard would also be shot. It would be a very superficial wound. Howard liked the idea of some fleshy part of the thigh, something that would allow him to limp and use a cane for a few weeks, something that would visually remind people of the fight he had put up to try and save his father's life. The priest continued staring up at the Eau de Vie restaurant, hoping that Janos would sometime use the binoculars he had just bought to scan the street below. The priest wanted Janos to see him. He wanted to see the look on his face. He wanted him to know. "Tonight," he had whispered in her ear as he held her close. "Tonight," he had said with his kiss goodbye. Ein felt nothing. It was almost as though she had just finished a book and closed its cover. Parts of it would stay with her, though some parts always do. But now she had to get back to the Janos in Beirut. That was the role she had to play now. Where it would take her she was not sure, but she had come too far to walk off the stage in the middle of the final act. A guard came to escort her from the room. She thought she would be led to the exit. Instead, he took her to Colonel Abbas's office. "The secret, Mrs. Farkas," he said. "I didn't tell him," she replied. "You didn't tell him what?" "The secret," she answered. "Of course you didn't," he replied. "You couldn't. How could you? You see, you don't know the secret." "The diamond," she said. "Ah, the diamond. Yes, the diamond. The diamond is part of the secret, but only part. Would you like to know the rest of the secret?" "What?" she asked. "The rest of the secret is that tonight your husband is going to escape. It seems he has bribed a guard with an expensive diamond, and the guard is going to let him escape through the small door on the north side. It will be morning before we know he is gone. That's the secret you can't tell, Miss Farkas. That's our little secret." That's the end of chapter 55.